So DOGE is cutting big. It's now claiming $105 billion in savings and counting, about $650 per American taxpayer. And President Trump, he's coming with the receipts. Watch.
Just listen to some of the appalling waste. $22 billion from HHS to provide free housing and cars for illegal aliens. $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. You're going to find out where that money's going, and it's not going to be pretty. Put more money in the pockets of American families.
But just this morning, the Supreme Court throwing Musk and DOGE a slight roadblock. It is upholding a judge's order forcing the Trump administration to pay out nearly $2 billion in U.S. aid payments. And I want to circle back to that last point about this latest kind of blow in the courts. But before we get to that, Brian, I want to talk more about how the Democrats are kind of painting the work of DOGE.
Oh, yeah.
We just heard from Alyssa Slatkin there just a moment ago. Here's more of what Representative Subrah Mayhem, a Democrat from Virginia, said. DOGE is not about getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse and improving government efficiency. It's about control over federal workers and institutions and revenge over political opponents. Are they winning a war over just how we understand DOGE in the public sphere?
Well, they're trying to. You know, the Slotkin thing is interesting, right? Because she says, oh, we need a more efficient government, and I'll help you with that.
Nope.
But it shouldn't be chaotic. Well, their word for chaos in reality is just being aggressive, just moving. What they don't like is Elon Musk is being aggressive. Can I add to you one of my favorite examples? So this is the Inter-American Foundation. Have you ever heard of the Inter-American Foundation? Me neither. Nobody has. It was created in 1969 by Congress, okay? Issues grants to countries in Latin America and Caribbean. Let me give you an example of some of the grants that they do, just to add to the great list that Trump had. $903,000 for alpaca farming in Peru, okay? $813,000 for vegetable gardens in El Salvador.
Oh, come on.
$731,000 to improve marketability of mushrooms and peas in Guatemala, okay?
Wow.
We should not do any of that. With a government with $36 trillion in debt, we should not do any of that. That's Elon Musk's very basic proposition. Trump laid it out beautifully last night. Democrats hate it because Elon Musk is finding things like this that we've never heard of and you could never justify. And to that last quote you read, it does threaten their power hold over the bureaucracy, which is their hold on democracy when they're not in office.
It also threatens their pockets. I mean, who runs those organizations? Who's getting paid to administer this kind of stuff? That's what, I mean, think.
Oh, you know the average salary in that agency? Yeah. It's like $130,000.
Yeah, I mean, it's nuts. Wow. I mean, it's not that this is, it's grand theft. They're stealing. They have stole hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars. That's where the real accountability needs to go. And if you start to go after these organizations and you start to pull down one facade after another, at some point you're going to say, by the way, who got paid what and how and who offered them the job? I mean, this thing really could blow up. This could be Watergate times a million. You know, it really could.
All of that money in a little circle right around Washington, D.C., going to Northern Virginia, going to Maryland. And this is what people do when they get out of government office. If you lose your election, you go into one of these organizations and you score money. I mean, this is how the parties could sustain. And let me tell you, not just the Democrats, friends, also Republicans.
That's
well,
true.
you know, when DOGE started off on its whole mission to root out waste, fraud, and abuse, they at first said they were going to cut about $2 trillion, and they were looking as a whole, and they were looking to return maybe around $5,000 to each taxpayer. We're only at around $650 now. Do you think they're feeling the pressure to really deliver?
No, I mean, listen, they understand there's a clock. There's the debt clock that was always running. There's also midterm election clock that's always running, and there's this kind of thing. But I just want to read something from this Harvard-Harris poll. One, there's the question, do you believe the current level of U.S. federal government debt is sustainable or unsustainable? 67% unsustainable. Do you think the U.S. government should move in the next few years to balance the budget, or is that unrealistic, and should it continue to run significant deficits? 83% said no. We want to move to balance the budget. So the American public is behind this 1,000,000%.
Can I just give you one other fact here? We talk about the top line, $36 trillion, almost 37. The debt per taxpayer, okay? Debt per taxpayer, everybody on this panel, most of the people in this building, $323,000. What if you had to pay that bill right now? I mean, it's unsustainable. We are broke. Biden gave us a bankrupt country.
Well, it brings up this debate, and Charles, you remind me of it when you do talk about the work that you do with the charter school in Harlem. Brian, I think of you because we have this debate at our church where we want to send missionaries to Africa to spread the world of Jesus. And bear with me, I'm going to come back to money, I promise. I know it's the first day of Lent. But the other half of our congregation says, but look at Main Street and look at the drug dealers and the homeless and the people who need our help in our own neighborhood. And so it brings up this debate where we can't help the world, to your point, Brian, until we take care of our own. And we're only as strong as our weakest link here. So if we can help pay off our debt here, then we will be strong enough to spread the good word to the rest of the world, whatever that is. And I'm not saying we have to withdraw all funding to some of our allies. But when you're talking about peas and vegetables, that's where I'm thinking that's why we got to kind of refocus and take care of our own, get our own house in order before we start going abroad and spreading the word.
It's such a good point. And by the way, there's so much documented research on the fact that this aid that we send overseas often doesn't help the people who get it because it creates a dependency on the aid, a dependency on America. Sometimes it crowds out local industry. So all I'm saying is even if we think some of this is doing good, it's definitely doing good, Jerry, for the people in D.C. who are getting six-figure salaries and living off this year after year. It's highly questionable how much it's helping the people who we say it's helping.
Well, you know, what you see is that this money goes out year after year.
Right.
And these programs, you know, it's like sedimentation, right? It lays on another layer of more payment and more payment and more payment. And there's just no respect for taxpayer money. I think the taxpayers need more respect in this situation. We need to realize we're wasting our money when it could go to things that could really make a big difference.
And this is exactly what Justice Alito wrote about in his scathing dissent today on that Supreme Court case that I mentioned just moments ago, where essentially the Supreme Court said, hey, you know what, Trump administration, you can't stop the payments on these government contracts. You must pay out on $2 billion worth of government contracts on foreign aid. Justice Alito saying this, quote, does a single district court judge, that's the lower court judge that will order these contracts be paid, who likely lacks jurisdiction, have unchecked power to compel the government of the United States to pay out $2 billion in taxpayer dollars? The answer to that question should be an emphatic no.
Well,
but a majority of this court apparently thinks otherwise. I am stunned.
Well, the courts never had a problem when we were doling out the money. But now all of a sudden, sometimes there is a problem when now we want to pull back the money. And that's what I can't wrap my head around.
But when we get to the question about who's deciding
was this
what we're
about honoring
paying,
a contract? So, I mean, I just saw the headline, so I don't know the nitty gritty of it. But was the Supreme Court, was this based on just of us honoring something that we'd already signed a contract?
I think it was work done.
The question is about work done, and the Trump administration was challenging this, saying that they at least wanted to suspend the payments, and the district court judges getting actually entered an order saying these payments are being made too slowly, you need to accelerate them. And what Alito was saying here is, does the district court judge get to say that? He's really questioning the jurisdictional power, to your point about who gets to decide what we're paying here. In this case, it's
we get
judge.
a lot of that stuff anyway already, like, you know, shopping for different courts, different districts and things like that, gaming the system.
That's why we keep lawyers on this panel. Very helpful in situations like this.